job is what the company is paying you for. You should be adding more value. You should be adding on, value add beyond that. Failure doesn't have to be ultimate failure. We say failure means, what's the worst that could happen? Unless somebody dies, it's not ultimate. Failure is not ultimate. Failure is a great way to learn the lessons you need to get to the next step. I did have a couple of part-time jobs. I worked at Domino's as a part-time marketing guy for a little while. Right before I got in my degree, I worked at the supermarket for a couple of months where I was a cashier. So those are the kind of things I was going to. I was interested in doing.
Hello audience, today we have Arnold sir with us, who has worked in about 10 countries around the world, done business across the globe and as numerous roles and with different levels of business. So hello sir, how are you?
I'm well, Mishika. Thank you. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm good too. So, and also audience, I forgot one thing. He is the founder of Lokyatha. So first, sir, can you tell the audience what is Lokyatha about?
Sure, absolutely. So, hello to the audience, first of all, right? And to tell you a little bit about Lokyatha. Lokyatha is an initiative that I started sometime mid last year. The intention and goal of Lokyatha is to bring awareness, wider awareness to the need for real life skills in our academic system. Skills like sex education, financial literacy, networking, sales, emotional intelligence. Right now, our education system is heavily focused on academics and marks and grades. But coming out of the education system and looking at what the real world needs, it's a lot less of the stuff that we are focusing on and a lot more of the other things that are real life skills. And these have a real impact between our personal lives and our professional lives. So Lokyatha's goal is to be able to bring awareness and hopefully either impact the education system so that there is more attention given to these areas. If not, be able to provide these courses at an elementary level so that everyone has a first level 101 understanding of these life skills, and then they can move on and learn on their own individually, so that's really the goal.
Okay, so how do you plan to impact the students, or how do you plan to bring a change? Like what is the approach Lokyatha follows?
So the way I'm looking to do this is direct to audience, B2C kind of idea, to be able to get people to acknowledge the need for this. Right now, where we live, in not just in our country, even around the world, for example, sex education, right? The real unbiased sex education is missing. And whatever complaints we have in India, they go around the same thing all around the world, even in the US. So it's not just the West has certain things and India doesn't have. There are a lot of these gaps that exist. So being able to educate and inform people about the need for these things in the first place is what's key. Financial literacy. A lot of our parents will say, you focus on marks, you focus on your studies, don't worry about these other things. But then the problem is by the time you're 21, you come out of college and you go to work, maybe you have to move to another city. Having to learn all these things at that time is slightly harder. Not that it's impossible, but then there are chances of you having made mistakes already, which sometimes are a little expensive to learn. Right? Being able to network effectively. You should be starting doing that at the age of 17, 18, not after 22, 25. Your college is not going to teach you that effectively because most colleges, at least, the tier 2, tier 3 colleges, the professors don't have as much work experience. So they don't know what it's like in the real world to be able to handle yourself. So these skills are something that should be taught from an early age, 12, 15, 18, and then give you the seed of these skills from that point and then help you grow. So being able to educate you about the need for it is the first step. So I'm going about on that mission to tell people, hey, this is needed. Why do you need it? Let me tell you some real examples about why it's needed. And here's how it could affect your life. So once, there is some level of understanding, there's a certain level of growth about the need for these skills, then I'm looking to move forward and hopefully, deliver these skills as courses or whatever. But that's really the approach I'm looking to go towards.
So now that we know about Lokyatha, let's talk to Arnold sir about him. So sir, tell us about your childhood.
So my childhood, I was. This is a very unique question. I don't remember the last time I talked about my childhood though. I was born and raised in the Middle East in Bahrain. My dad was working there when he got married and took my mom there. So my sister and I, we were born there, and I studied in the Indian system school. It was a CBSE school.
Okay.
We had a fairly typical, international upbringing, but then it was still close to home. It's still connected with India. We used to come on vacations every year. Uh, I think that there are certain differences, the pros and cons about being, brought up outside India and here. I think that there's a lot more uh, overprotected that your parents are if you're born outside, but there's a lot more exposure that kids get over here. Like for example, school trips we used to go to like a theme park or a place like that. But here, kids would pack up and go to Assam or go to the mountains and do some crazy cool stuff like that. So those kind of experience we're missing out. But also you get exposure. You have a lot more. I had friends. I used to play around with Pakistanis and Bangladeshis and Americans, and there was a lot of that kind of exposure. So there's pros and cons to that kind of environment and upbringing. I was not a typical academic student. I was not the best at studies. So a lot of my time outside of school was spent in playing games, getting involved with friends. I enjoyed doing a lot of business back then. I enjoyed buying and selling, trading games, stickers, creating services for different people. So I started that very early, 6th, 7th standard onwards. It was something that fascinated me. So although my grades were not very high, this was something that, that caught my attention early on, along with computers, technology, and that kind of stuff. So that was what my childhood was pretty much about.
Okay, so I also have this story where we have this winter carnival in our school where we get
Uh-huh.
tickets. So the ticket was 50, and during the carnival I used to sell the tickets at 100, 150. So one day the teacher caught me, and
All right.
all the students started saying the black mein bech diya, black mein bech diya. So from the next time onwards, the teacher saw, okay, hi, let's bech to rahi, and how is she doing that? Like, because double the price or triple the price. So the next time onwards, what she did was she gave all the tickets to me, your 50 wali, the initial price pay, and say now you sell them to different kids, different school के जितने भी friends हैं, increase हमारी audience बढ़ाओ तुम.
Wow, wonderful. So instead of punishing you, she made you the head of sales, is it?
Yeah.
So that's amazing. That's an amazing story. How lovely.
So
Have you
what?
always been interested in that kind of thing, going against the grain and doing something different?
Yes, absolutely. So I have this
That's
many
exciting.
instances where I was caught. Sometimes I was scolded. Then I was given the responsibility of that. So yeah.
Nice, nice. Very interesting. All right.
So what were your dreams and aspirations as a child? Who did you look up to?
I didn't have a lot of career goals, aspirations. I enjoyed having a lot of fun. I enjoyed playing in games and that kind of stuff. So I think I remember at one point, maybe I was 10 or 12, I said, I want to be a pilot because I thought it was cool. I just said, okay, I want to be a pilot. But then I realized later down the line, you need better science grades to be a pilot. And that just wasn't going to happen. So I think that was what my childhood. But then as I got along playing, video games and computers, much like kids today, my love for technology and software grew. So when I was in college, I actually got a fascination towards technology software. So I wanted, as a young student in college, I wanted to be a super programmer. I was very competitive studying. My grades went up. I did a lot of programming on the side, and I was really excited about it. So I was very fascinated by Bill Gates and Narayan Murthy. Infosys was a
Yeah.
big thing for me back then, like in the early 2000, 20 years ago. So those were the kind of things that I had in my mind. Uh, it's funny, it's ironic I say that because I never programmed a single day professionally. As soon as I got out of college, there was no programming I ever did. I used that technology experience and background for other things, but I never really programmed. So that's funny how life changes along the way. No matter what plans you have, it has its own plan for you.
So how was college for you? And what expectations did you have from college and the college degree to be specific?
So, you know, to be very frank, I didn't even want to go to college. After 12th standard, I told my mom, I said, okay, I'm done. Is there any way I can, go into something else? I can be in work in hardware, or I can be, I can learn some other skills or be in sales. I was not interested, but I mean, knowing the, the quintessential, typical Indian parents, no, you have to get a degree, you have to go to college. One thing my folks didn't force me to do is, go be a doctor, lawyer, engineer kind of thing. So I got an average entrance exam ranking for my engineering, and I wasn't getting any decent colleges. There were some top colleges in Bangalore which were for automobile or civil, which was really not my interest area. But I said, hey, I want to go to that nice college because my friends are going there. How about I go? And my mom, she yelled at me. She said, give it to someone who deserves it. Don't take someone else's engineering seat just
Absolutely.
because, it's a brand. So they never forced me to go to engineering. So that's one thing I'm little thankful. I'm very thankful for my parents. So I ended up doing an undergraduate in a tier two in Mangalore. Mangalore is where our home and family ancestry is from. So I did my Bachelor of Computer Applications there. So it was just about getting the degree. For me at that point, aspirations or career goals at that point wasn't very strong. It wasn't as, I mean, I connect with a lot of young kids, young adults like yourself, and in that age group of 18 to 20, 25, very career oriented. There's a lot of ambition, there's a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm. I can assure you that this didn't exist 20 years ago. At least from where I was sitting, I didn't have that. I came out to work, and that's where ambition picked up, and my excitement towards doing something great, doing something valuable, being something better than who I was. That picked up a little late after college. But during college, it was more of, okay, I'm studying. I'm here to get a degree. This is what I need to do. This is what everyone does. So, chalo, hum bhi karte hain. So that was really the intention. I did, while I was at work in college, I did have a couple of part-time jobs. I worked at Domino's uh, as a part-time marketing guy for a little while. Right before I got into my degree, I worked at a supermarket for a couple of months
Okay.
where I was a cashier. So those were the kind of things I was more interested. I was interested in doing, not sitting in a classroom learning, looking at books.
Mhm.
So that was so. Ambitions didn't really come up till maybe I was 20, 21 kind of thing. So it was more of, let's be done with this, let's get out of it and move on. So what I see today with the kids today, they're a lot more driven, and there are good things and bad things about it, but that was what was different for me back then.
Okay. So, how was your first job or internship like?
Say again, what was that? How
What
was
was
my
the first job or internship you landed at? How was that?
So the year I graduated, 2004, was when Infosys had first started all these tech companies, outsourcing and offshoring companies, service companies like Infosys, TCS. Infosys was the one, the first company that came to our college for the first time
Okay.
for recruitment. So they had campus placement. We were the first batch that they came to pick up. And prior to that, they had only taken engineering students. So my batch, the folks who joined with me in July 2004, we were the first ones that Infosys picked up who were not engineers. So that was our first entrance. And considering I was big on the name Infosys, it was a big, exciting thing to do. A lot like kids today saying, "Oh, I want to go to Amazon or I want to go to Google." Infosys was a big name. Even now, it's valuable, but you don't have the same starry-eyed glamour that you used to back then.
Right.
The media doesn't push it that way, at least. So I was excited. I was excited. I got into a software testing and a process role, and on I used to work around 10, 12 hours a day. I loved the job, and I loved doing what I was doing, even though it was not programming. I loved being around, professional employees and learning from them. And Infosys has a way where there's a lot of trainings for folks who join in right when you join in. So it's very different from college life, and you get to be able to see. Of course, there are a lot of young kids as well, young people as well, but there's a lot of focus on training, on a lot of focusing on branding. All of those things were things that we were taught back then, and something that really triggered me and got me to look at myself at a different level, got me uh, improving, and for lack of a better word, perfecting at that age.
Okay.
Communication skills, my other
Mhm.
capabilities to network and talk to different ages of people. So that was really what it was like. I had a great team. I had a pretty good boss as well. A couple of good bosses there, and they encouraged me to look beyond just the job. The job is what the company is paying you for. You
Right.
should be adding more value. You should be adding on, value add beyond that. Take initiative, because that's how you will stand out from the regular guy or a girl who's doing their job. So those are the kind of things that I said. For the first 2.5 years, I worked in Infosys, Bangalore and Mysore. Those were the kind of things that were ingrained in me, and that those are great lessons to have, to set off your career and start off. So anyone looking to start their career, especially folks just finishing their graduation, don't look for a great company, great this thing. Look for a good enough boss. Look for someone who's willing to invest in you. It's easier said than done, but it's the best advice that I can give anyone who's starting out. Look for a good boss who's willing to invest in you and
Mhm.
push you further. So
So I see you've also worked with couple of hotels, casinos. So what was that about? Like what phase of career was that, and how did that happen?
So after Infosys, I bounced around a couple of times. I was in Bangalore. I moved to Mysore for Infosys, and for personal and professional reasons, I decided to leave that and move to another company in Chennai. That was a healthcare software company. What I did not know was how to research a company well enough before you join. So
Okay,
that's
okay.
something that's very valuable.
Okay. So
Sorry, go ahead.
I would also like to ask, what is a healthcare software company?
What is that company, or what does it do? Is that what your question is?
What did they do?
So yeah, so they built a software for hospitals,
Okay.
for doctors like general practitioners,
Mm-hmm.
on people who may have a standalone clinic, and all of these systems talk to each other. So I'm not sure if you know much about the UK health system, the NHS, National Health Service. So this company, iSoft, it was called back then, used to supply their product to the NHS for the UK.
Okay.
So in the UK, all of the medical information is maintained by the government,
Mm-hmm.
and each of the doctors have their own system where your information, my information, all of the patient's information is maintained on this system.
Okay.
So all of your patient records, patient
Mm-hmm.
history, your visits, your allergies, any counter indications, all of that kind of stuff, any medication that been issued to you in the past, right? On all that put together was maintained on the system. So you
Okay.
could go to any doctor within the network, and
Mm-hmm.
all that information was stored there. So
Okay. Okay.
it was a large system. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what the company used to do. So I was part of the software testing team.
Okay.
I mean, there was something that we built back then. It's funny that you asked that now, because um, as part of the launch back then, 2006, we had built the organ donation database. So anyone who wanted to donate their organs, maybe eyes, skin, lungs, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
could be able to do it using the system.
Okay.
And just last week, there was a change in that system after 14, 15 years, where now mandatory across the NHS, everybody is by default an organ donor. So it's
Okay.
using the same part of our software that was
Mm-hmm.
built 15 years ago. This just happened last week. So, and it's funny you ask about the details of that. So I mean, it's something I tell a lot of folks, that you can't always look for purpose and passion right away. You have to be able to find. You can't look for passion right away. You have to be able to look for purpose in what you're doing. And sometimes 15 years later, you'll see value in what you're creating and say, "Oh wow, look at what happened." Right. So that's really. But coming back to your original question, sorry to digress. um, from that company, it didn't work out very well. I had I made mistake joining that company. It wasn't a very good
Mm-hmm.
company. They were failing. They were running short on contract time and stuff like that. So I left in less than a year. I left, and I was looking for a job. I bumped into this casino company.
Mm-hmm.
On one of my common friends from Infosys, his friend referred me into the casino
Okay.
company, and that's how I landed there. It wasn't intentional, or I was not looking to get into the industry, but then it triggered a big part of my career. Over the next 7 years, I did a lot of casino work. Casinos, it's a combination of uh, hospitality, hotels, entertainment. Uh, it's very heavily regulated, so there's a lot of banking level laws and regulations that you have to meet. So it's combination, and each country has got their own rules, very much like banking. Excuse me. And so it was an interesting journey. I was there for a couple of years in India. They moved me out to Singapore for a couple of years.
Okay.
I did some work in China, in
Mm-hmm.
Macau for 2 years. They moved me out to Philippines as well. So I think that was an interesting, part of my career where I met a lot of interesting people. I moved around doing a lot of cool stuff. It was hard. It was really hard. You can imagine going into a building which is not even fully constructed. It's still cement and mud, and you're laying out network cables and you're planning for the project. And soon after it's open, then you see carpets and bright lights and colorful stuff. And it's amazing seeing that transition. So a lot of that kind of stuff happened during that process. And it was fun. It was exciting. I think that's something I would wish for everyone to be able to have in their life, in their career, to be able to see something before and see something after, to be able to complete a transition. And this is a question that a lot of folks ask me: is it okay to jump companies every 2-3 years, or should I stay in a company for 10-15 years? So there's pros and cons to both. But if you stay in a company for a slightly extended period of time, 3 years or more, you get to see strategies unroll, you get to see projects coming out, and you get to see the finished product of what you've built. And you say, oh wow, this is what I was part of. I did this small piece, and now look at what it's become. So it's a great thing to be able to see the transition from beginning to end for certain things. So
okay, and what would you say are the cons? What would you say are the cons of jumping companies?
Cons of jumping company? Well, one is this, right? If you jump companies too soon, you don't get to see a strategy unroll and roll out. So sometimes strategies are made for 18 to 24 months. Sometimes there are companies where you have strategies that's 5 years, 7 years down the line. So depending on what kind of company you join, you may not be able to see that end to end. You may not be part of that journey, and that journey requires a lot of transition, requires a lot of growth within you and outside of you as well. So you get to be part of that wave that's taking off and going to a peak. So that's part of it is a con, because you don't get to see it. Yes, you get to see different elements if you move quickly, but I would not say there's one one is better than the other. I've moved companies after 7 years, and I moved companies after 1 year also. So I don't think there's I've seen people who have been in companies for 10-15 years, even in this current generation, not talking about our parents or my parents or whatever, but even the current generation, staying with one place for a longer period of time. You can the people who join with you 15 years later will be a director, vice president in another section of the company. So you have a wider reach across the company. So if you there for a couple of years, you get to see a small bit and you move on, but you also get to explore. So it kind of the summary to that is breadth versus depth, right? You can see a lot more, but bits and pieces at a very surface level, versus depth over a longer period of time. So I think those are pros and cons I could summarize.
Okay. So a lot of students also have this question, like while going to a company and showing the recruiter a CV, and while the recruiter sees with jumped company in very short span of time, so does it have a negative impression on the recruiter?
So again, I'll say it depends on the recruiter. So if I was interviewing, so I've interviewed, I've hired people in the past, and if I had to look at it, I would ask the person, why did you move? Why did you move this job? Why did you move this job? Why did you move this job? Tell me more about it. I would want to know what the person learned in each of the jobs. And that's something that's very important. Just by moving, you have to learn something in each place, pick up a new skill, or build on a particular skill that you already have. Maybe take it from level 2 to level 3, or level 3 to level 5, grow on an existing skill set, or gain a new skill set. And a lot of these skills that you gain over time are transferable. You can use the same skill set in a different place, right? Your communication, just because you start in a new company after 2 years, it doesn't go back. You start a new level of communication with a new environment. So being able to explain what you've learned, being able to take away a new thing, being able to say, I did this part, I came to a logical end of a project and I wanted to move on, right? That's a very valid explanation. And as long as the recruiter is willing to listen to you, any good hiring manager or recruiter will ask you that. And if they don't, usually when there's a recruitment option for you to say, do you have any questions? This is usually a time that you can bring it up and talk about it, saying, you might notice that if they didn't bring it up, but if a recruiter sees that and doesn't appreciate or doesn't ask you, they, that's something that they have a personal bias for, and you can't really do anything about that. But being able to position it on your resume and saying, I've learned these things in each company after 1 year, after 2 years, that's the best way to be able to say that. Or you could even have had a bad time, right? It doesn't have to be positive jump. It could be a negative jump where there was a difficult crisis in the company. I've got a very close friend who's been in, I think, 5 companies in the last 7 years,
Okay.
and it's not been her fault. And she's a pretty senior. She's she's 16 years experience just like me, and 5 companies in 7 years at this stage of your career, it shows some kind of instability. But then when you ask what really happened, there are a lot of real reasons about the project shut down. There was there was a layoff. My boss wasn't this thing. These were the things that I was expecting, but they didn't turn out. So all of those kind of things are explainable. But if I can present to you my skills or what I've grown with, that is the most valuable takeaway. That's what you should be able to explain and clarify. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely.
All
So
right.
I also read that you had a 6-figure net worth by the age of 30. So was there any specific event or person that triggered you into realizing that this is not the place I want to be and I want to dive in the startup world?
There wasn't one specific instance or person or event. I mean, I've already told you that I've always been interested in business and sales and be able to do things on my own. And I quit my job full time in 2014. But before that, I was already an investor in a few companies. I was in my friends' companies, people that I've known. I've already tried to start something which was like kind of the Facebook memory thing right now, where it shows you your memories. This is what you did last year, 5 years, 10 years ago. So I was trying to design something like that with a friend in 2008, long before Facebook started it. So we were trying to build an integration into Facebook to be able to pull out your photos and store it and tell you every year, hey, this is what you've done. Hey, this is your photo. This is your memory. So we were trying to do that. And we were still trying to build an interface. We didn't know enough about outsourcing and being able to hire developers to do that. So we put in a couple of lakhs, tried to build it with an outsourced developer. I think it was in Delhi or whatever. And it didn't go very well. We didn't even get it off the ground. We struggled because I was in Singapore at the time. My friend was in Delhi. We hired someone my friend was in Bangalore. We hired someone in Delhi. And it was a nightmare trying to just get that out. So we lost that money. We gave it up. We learned a lot about outsourcing through that process. But there were a lot of different things that I've tried prior to leaving my job full time in 2014. And my journey with the casino company had come to a place where I had learned a lot. It's not that I was the CEO of the company and there was no more further for me to go, but it came to a place where I've been here for 7 years. It's similar crowds, similar customers. There's not a lot of new exciting action that I could see for the next year or two. So I was intrigued about whether I could really set off on my own and start my own company. So part of it was growth that I believed I could get elsewhere. Part of it was comfort financially. I said, okay, I can weather this out for the next 3 to 5 years. I have enough cash to, keep me going, to start a company. And even if I fail, I can come back with new skills that I wouldn't get in the corporate world. Part of it was a little bit was boredom in my current job after 7 years being in the same place. Another part of it was curiosity. Can I do this? Am I someone who can, take to the next level? And it's like, okay, chalo, how do you see whether you can ride a bicycle? You have to get on and fall off your ass, right? So it really came down to that. So those combination of things kind of set me off and said, okay, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to leave. And I had good relationship with the company. So if I needed to come back, I had that assurance saying, okay, after 2 years, mujhe wapas aana. No, I want to come back. So that kind of stuff plays well in the long run. So I took that leap and I said, okay, chalo, let's go. Let's see what happens. And that's how it happened.
Okay. So did you also have like different things planned for you in case your plan fails and like if you face the downfall?
So my plan was pretty much 2 options: either succeed at the business that I was going to try, or option B was come back to work, right? And if I failed at the business and I still had some more money, I could try something else. Or I really needed to come back to work because that's the next option. So my parents are middle class kind of folks. I couldn't expect them to cover me or to be able to support me in any way, except maybe morally or emotionally. But even that was not very positive. My parents are not from a business risk taking background. Forget business. My parents don't even own stocks. So my parents are the type who say, okay, buy insurance and put all your money in FD. So it's very safe, very conservative financially. That's their mindset. So, and I think a lot of kids and young adults could relate to that.
Right.
So I said, what is this business? What do you think you are? Who do you think you are? So that was a big struggle. And, okay, mera beta, he's in China. My son is in Singapore. Being able to say that and say, oh, he's come back to India. Why? What happened to your son? Log kya kahenge? So all of that were slight battles. But I was already, I don't know, 29. I was 30 at the time. And it's not, I didn't have major commitments. I was not married either at the time. So it was easier for me to say, you know what, I'm doing this. You guys can't stop me from getting on the flight and coming back. So I'm on my way back. So I think that's one of the key things I had to get past. My parents, in my way, so to speak. But they were supportive after I got here. And they let me do what I had to do.
Okay, so what were the lessons that you learned from the downfall?
Wow. So the lessons was a massive list. I think it'll take a 3-hour podcast to get through the lessons, but I think one big thing that I take away is that failure doesn't have to be ultimate failure. We say failure means, what's the worst that could happen? Unless somebody dies, it's not ultimate, right? You could lose a lot of money. You could lose all your money, but can you recover, right? So you have to be willing to take risks at that level also, depending on your risk tolerance. Understanding that mistakes happened because you're not that smart. Not you, me, right? That's me talking to myself. Understanding that you're not as smart as you thought you were. You have to ask better questions next time you want to do this. You have to stay curious and keep learning. You have to do more research. You have to understand more about business than you already know, because you don't know as much as you think. Maybe if business is, ABC to Z, you probably know ABC till F. There are still another 20 characters for you to learn. And these are the different things you need to really understand and take a step before you take a next venture. Another thing that I learned was about managing money. I put too much money in too fast, and it didn't go very well. I could have balanced it out, tried a different pace. But I think at the end of the day, the risk that I took taught me lessons that are helping me today with Lokyatha to be able to say, I've managed with nothing in the past, not very long ago, 5-6 years ago. I've hit rock bottom. Failure is not ultimate. Failure is a great way to learn the lessons you need to get to the next step. Nobody gets it right. Almost nobody gets it right on their first try. So that lesson took me not just for my next venture, my current venture, Lokyatha, but also for my work. I did extremely well when I went back to work a couple of years after the previous one failed, was because I was not afraid to fail. I was not afraid to make mistakes or look stupid or look bad. I could tell the boss, hey, listen, so and so, this is really what I think. This is what I think. I think we should go this way. If you agree, that's great. If you don't, we'll do it your way. That's fine. And more often than not, your boss wants to hear that kind of stuff. Your boss wants to acknowledge, okay, there are more ideas than my idea. Let's do it that way. If that's better, let's, so of course you have to have the right boss also. That's very critical, because some bosses are just assholes. So I think it's important to be able to handle that, and understanding what is the level you can take was, what is your boundary? What is your risk tolerance? That's a big lesson that I learned back then. That's one of the big ones.
So like in context to Lokyatha, what made you realize that we need better like sex education, financial education, or building connections?
As I look back at my journey, right? So after I went back to work, after my last failure, I realized, like I said, that I didn't know as much about business as I thought I did, and I was looking to learn. I learned a lot from the failure, but I wanted to complete the gaps. So I did an MBA on the side. And I did it while I was working. I did an executive MBA. I was traveling quite often to go to classes and keep my job. But that MBA was out of the US. So coming from an Indian education system, I studied in the CBSE board. I did an undergrad in a tier 2 college in India, but doing it from a top school in the US, and interacting with a wide range of people at a classroom level, not at business. I've done business with meeting other nationalities, but sitting with all of them in a classroom, learning the same marketing concepts, learning the same strategy concept, same finance, you get to understand more of what you're thinking. What are you thinking? What's on your mind? What's on your mind? So you ask these questions, and you start, understanding more about yourself as well as other people. That whole experience got me looking at our education system, and it made me look back over the last 15, 20 years. Anything that I've achieved and succeeded at, I asked myself, where did that come from? That didn't come from school. It didn't come from college. A lot of that came from life experiences, making mistakes and learning from there. And I look at all of the key components of those different learnings that I've got, and 99% of them were not from college. It was from experience. And nobody teaches us this stuff. Nobody teaches us how to be better at money. But they, uh, what I recognized was that knowing these skills are what gets you performing better at work and at life. For example, if you have a financial issue, let's say you have a big loan, or you've taken, you're in some debt, are you going to be able to come to work and concentrate every day? You're not going to be able to concentrate. You'll just do your bare minimum job. You'll just do enough so that your boss doesn't fire you. You just don't want to rock any boats. You will not be the best version of yourself. Let's say you have relationship problems, maybe boyfriend, girlfriend, or whoever your partner. Maybe if someone's married, your tension at home will come in, it'll come to the office. Or if you have tension at work, it'll come, take it back home. You yell at your spouse, you yell at your kids, or vice versa. So all of these, what I did was I spent time thinking through that process of transformation over the last couple of years, with the failure, with the MBA, with all of these things. I created a framework of about 50 or 60 skills and how they affect both work and life. Both our professional and personal life. So if you are short of money, you'll only worry about your next salary hike. You'll jump. You won't take the most value out of it. You won't try to learn. You just say, I want 30% hike. Bills barna hai. You'll just focus on that and you'll want to take. So all of these things tied. I created a framework of all these skills that talk to each other and actually have a deep impact. And that's really how the idea of Lokyatha came about over the last year. Interacting with a lot of young adults, asking them what are the questions they have, what are the concerns they have. I have I have a new boyfriend or girlfriend. I'm worried about intimacy with them. I'm worried about relation with them. That tension is not allowing you to focus on studies. That tension is not allowing you to focus on your internship. So you're losing out on so many different spaces because of these skills that are not balanced. So through that, experience and research over the last year, I came up with the idea of Lokyatha and said, okay, we need to be talking about life skills that will help everybody, on a grand scale. That will change a lot of things, hopefully, with the way our country, our lives really operate. So that's really how it came to be.
Yes. And where do you see Lokyatha in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think that's a long time. So I think it's very hard, especially with the current situation. I don't think it's very easy to be able to make 10-year plans, unless you're maybe you're a government or a large company. I don't think it's very easy. You can have a vision. So my vision for the next few years is to be able to start engaging with colleges, with mainstream schools who want to talk about this stuff to their students, who want to empower their students to learn more about these different skills, and then be able to teach them some way or the other, either through online content, or to train their teachers or their professors to do this and deliver it. But that's kind of where I hope this would go. That's one. Another potential vision I have is where I develop some kind of a education portal or a library or a catalog kind of thing, where people come and say, okay, I need to learn at this stage of my life. I'm 16. What do I need to? At 18, what do I need to know? And depending on your goals, depending on your definition of success, like some person's definition of success may be career, super career growth,
Right.
maybe financial growth. It could be, I want to be in a good relationship. Depending on everybody's personal goals and ambitions at each stage of life, maybe 18 years old, 21 years old, 25, you're probably going to get married, planning to have kids. What are things you need to know? Those are the things I would like to be able to disseminate. So it's either one of the two. Either I work with academic boards or colleges and schools to be able to talk about this stuff, or be able to create some kind of a catalog, training, library of sorts where people can come and be able to get these skills. So that's really the vision over the next few years,
Okay.
hopefully.
So, like in the midst of the pandemic and the lockdown,
Right.
where did you see the opportunities for Lokyatha? Like, how did you mold it according to the need?
So my uh, my vision for Lokyatha is, you know, is not connected to the pandemic. Pandemics have happened. Pandemics will continue happening. People will continue getting sick. There will be things that will come. I mean, granted, the lockdown is an extreme situation,
Right.
right? But if you look at it, people have been getting laid off. The economy has slowed down. Financial literacy is a core skill that you should have had with the pandemic or without.
Right.
Right? The last recession was 12 years ago, 2008. There was no pandemic then, but you still needed to be financially literate. You still needed to manage your loans. You still needed to pay your bills. You still needed to have good credit score. You still needed to have good relationships with your spouse, your partner, or whatever. Right? This is the time where if someone got laid off, you need to have a good network. You don't invest in that now. You should have invested in that 3 months, 6 months, 3 years ago. Right? You don't build a bridge only when you get to the river.
Right.
When you want to cross the river, you build a bridge. So these are the kind of things these are the kind of skills that I'm looking to be able to build, so that these are time memorial. And there should be a Bible that should be relevant, not just with the pandemic or irrespective of the pandemic. It should be relevant for the next 20, 30 years. And a lot of these things, the way I've done research, they've come from thousands of years ago. Like if you look at the art of war, if you look at even the Bhagavad Gita, a lot of these core elements of what I'm trying to communicate in modern context comes from hundreds and thousands of years ago. So the lockdown has very little to do with it. There's a lot of value you can get by having these skills. So if you manage your finances and had an emergency fund, even if you got laid off because of a lockdown, you would be okay. You would be financially more stable.
Right.
So that's really the essence. So I've not changed very much. I was trying to go towards, at least my roadmap has slightly modified. I was looking at professional skills and being able to teach people about networking and those things, but I've navigated slightly and starting with mental health. And so I'm building more content on mental health now. So that is slightly changed, but otherwise the core framework is relevant no matter what day, year, global crisis is going on. That is something that's relevant irrespective of time.
Okay. So
Right?
like,
Does that answer?
yeah, it does. So like you said, we the Generation Z, to be specific, we
Right.
have a lot of things at hand. So
Right.
there are pros and cons of
Right.
being in this generation. So what do you think is the con?
So I think so. I'll start with the pros, right? Because one thing is, you guys at your generation at this level, right? Graduating right now. Granted, there's a crisis and that kind of stuff, right? But these some things. It's great to be able to see a crisis for the first time right at this stage,
Right.
and then grow from here, because this will shape your next 20 years. You're like, okay, these things happen. Yes, both are. How do I live my life around this? Growing from this, because this will create real strength for you. A lot of people may not realize it now. Many people may not agree with me, saying, hey, what are you talking about? But you'll see it over the years, right? So that's something I hope you take my word for. But apart from that, like the pros part of it, you guys are the luckiest, most fortunate to be born in this time. The internet, right? The amount of information you have accessible, being able to make so many choices. Like when I went to college, I started 20 years ago, 19 years ago. My wife also around the same time, a little earlier. We had doctor, lawyer, engineer, government service, and then degree. Degree was BCom, BCom, BSc, and BA. That was it. You guys have hazard options, right? So you can choose all kinds of things with all. Somebody told me like 6 months ago, I'm doing economics honors. So what the heck is economics honors? There's so many combinations. You can do veterinary science and so many things that you guys have options to do. You can learn even off the internet. Even if you do something in the day, study one course, you can study something else in the evening. You can do so much. So that you guys are the luckiest, most fortunate generation. But having said that, all of those choices, all of those options also make you kind of the unluckiest because you have so many choices to make, right? On where do you focus your time?
Right.
Which social media? Your friends are not the 20 friends around you or your 100 people in your class. You've got, 1,000 connections on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Where do you spend your time? Who do you invest in? What courses do you take? All right. It's like walking into an ice cream shop. And I give this example a lot. When you walk into an ice cream shop, when I went in 20 years ago, it was chocolate, strawberry, vanilla. Today, you have 100 options. I don't know which to choose. So that, causes a lot of fatigue from being able to choose so many options, all kinds of things, whether your time, your money, your resources, your energy, all of that is very hard to do. So I think that probably is a big con of being born, in this time or being around in this time. Choosing is a very, very hard thing to do. It's not easy. It's one of the most complicated things to do. So I think that is probably the biggest con. And I'm somewhat happy for you guys that you're born in this time, but also happy that I'm not born in this time. It's hard. It's just,
right. And also not having the right guidance adds up to it.
Correct. That amplifies the problem, right? If this problem is on a scale of 1 to 10, if it is 90 out of 100, that's the rating level of this problem. Having too many choices, not having guidance makes it 9 million times harder. Right. So it's extremely complex. You're worried. Do I make the right choice? Do I step back? On what if this is the wrong choice? Can I change later? So the thing is, you guys have to factor in, and this is something I want to assure you and all the listeners, that making a choice now is not, like I said, failure, right? About my venture is not ultimate, right? Unless you die, right? It's not ultimate. You can make a switch. In 16 years, I have switched 4 or 5 industries. I have taken transferable skills and made that my specialty, to take skills and be able to combine these skills to create something new or be someone who can, very few people who can do this, right? It's taken me 16 years to move through these multiple industries, through multiple roles. I've been in tech, I've been in product, I've been in sales, I've been in customer success, I've been in, I've been in a startup. So all kinds of things. I've learned finance through my startup. So on all of these kind of things, you can move. In 16 years, if I can move, considering I didn't have as much resources as you guys can move. So if you need to, the access is at the tip of your finger on your laptop or on your phone. You can do that. That's what I want to reassure you guys, that it may be hard, yes, definitely, but you can always take a step aside and, invest time to figure out what's the best thing for you, right? So I think that is what you should reassure yourself with.
So I also have this question, which a lot of students have. What does a recruiter see in an employee before hiring him or her?
Okay, so I think that's a good question. It's tough because it's relative. It depends on the recruiter. It depends on where you're joining, right? A corporate recruiter will be different from a startup recruiter.
Right.
A small company will be different from a big company. So a software or technology role will be different from a more business or an operations role. So I think fundamentally, what I can tell you, what I would hire for, and I think this is a good benchmark for each of you to be able to take forward: the ability to learn something new by yourself, right? And for that, you need curiosity. You need to be able to say, ask why. What is it? Why are we doing this way? Either if you can ask your teammate or your boss or your colleague, or Google online, or use your LinkedIn resources to be able to build relationships and ask these questions. Why we do things this way? And where can I get access for this course that I need to learn? Being able to learn fundamentally for the next generation is absolutely key. If you learned something previously, being able to unlearn that is also key.
Right.
All right. I'll give you an example. 15 years ago, the way we used to build software is, I don't know if you know a lot about tech and all, but I'll give you a rough idea. The way we used to build software is very different from how we build products today. 15, 20 years ago, you start writing the software, the coding, right? The program, you start writing the code. And from A to Z, you write everything yourself, and you put that on a website, or you put that on, on an app or whatever it is you're building, like an enterprise system. Today, maybe 25% of what you're selling is built by you. The other 75% will be some common repository. It'll be outsourced to some other agency, or companies like Amazon or Microsoft will already have the capabilities to do that. So you just integrate with them. I've had to unlearn how we build technology products today from what we used to do 20 years ago. So the same way with what we do with marketing, same way with what we do with sales, the tactics are so different today, right? We still need to be customer focused, but tactics are different. And that really is the message. Being able to learn and unlearn what you've learned previously may not be the case tomorrow, because technology is changing, people are changing, systems are changing, right? You have to be able to adapt to that and move forward. And that, if you can represent to a recruiter to say, I am a curious person, I'm someone who can communicate that I can learn, unlearn based on your, your profile or your portfolio or whatever, that will be one of the biggest things you can represent to, a recruiter in whatever way. Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. I also have this question: how to build connections? And by connections, I mean the right connections. Like, for instance, I have this example where I'm very much into research and content. So I read this research paper of a DSC officer, and after reading the research paper, I thought I should reach out to the officer, the professor, and
Professor, right?
professor, and let him know that I read his paper and I very much liked it, and I would love to work under his mentorship. So when I wrote the mail, so the mail I received back was, so please stop writing these spam mails, and I'm not sure which part of the paper you really liked. I'm also not sure if you really read it or not. So I would appreciate if you stop sending spam mails to professors all across the Delhi University. So,
All right. Okay,
considering that was the first mail I wrote to a DSC professor, it really hurt me, and it was so not pleasant to me.
I understand. Right. So your question, if I understand, is how do you handle how do you handle that, or how do you do it better or differently next time, right? Is that what you're?
Yes.
All right. So that's fair. So this is a hard thing to do, right? And I don't think there's one straight answer. One thing is, like you, I'm sure there are other students or other people who are trying to reach that professor and trying to take his time, and he has limited time, energy, to be able to sing, right? And everybody wants experience, everybody wants to work with them, everybody wants to learn from them. What very few people are doing is giving the professor something.
Okay.
Hi, professor, I'm so and so. And again, this doesn't have to work. It's something that you could start with, right? Hi, professor, I am so and so. I have this experience. I'm still junior, but are there things that you would like someone to help you with? Would you like someone to be able to support you in any of your initiatives, any of your projects? Would you like someone to do this thing? I've read your paper, and these are the key things that applied to me, that resonated with me, that related to me. So that way it shows that you know something about him, and it shows that it's not just, hi sir, give me job. Hi, hi so and so, can you give me internship? It's like, guys going to girls say, oh hi, will you be my girlfriend? It's not as random as that. And you conclude the boundary and say, yes, I know. And you have to remember, to build any relationship, there are 3 stages, right? And this is part of Lokyatha, so I'll tell you a little bit about it. To build a relationship, you have to get the person to know you, like you, and then trust you. Right? Only when I know you will I start to like you. Only when I like you will I start to trust you. I don't trust you right away, right? Not me and you, but I trust you. But the extent to which I trust you, am I giving you my time? Am I giving you some work? What the thing? So how do you build that? That takes time, being able to build that relationship, which is why something like networking or relationship management takes time. It's not something that you can build over like a single email.
Right.
With an email, he doesn't even know you. Right? He doesn't even on this thing. Now, for example, you and me, it's a simple this thing, right? We chatted briefly. I think it's a good maybe 45 minutes, half an hour, 45 minutes, we chatted.
Right.
So through that process, and like say, I was willing to invest that time to chat with you. Professor may not even have as much time or may not have the inclination to chat with you, but I was okay with that. So I got to know you and I got to like you already, which is why when you said, will you give me a time some time to, spend 1 hour on a podcast on recording, I was happy to do that.
Right.
And also this kind of is in my path as well. This helps me a little because it sends the message out about Lokyatha. So there is a give and take over there. So
Right.
I'm getting value, you're getting value. This is a give and take. So, so that you have to look at the same kind of dynamic for anyone you're looking to build a relationship with, right? On a first message could be, hi, professor, I really like your da-da-da. It's really exciting. This is what I liked about it. Are there any other things you have that I could research around the same thing? Or do you have any tips? Just a simple, where he only has to reply 2 lines and get it to you. That way he's done something, then you can say, oh, this is what I like. Here's my take on it. Now he gets to know you. You're Mishika from so-and-so university, so-and-so college. You have some level of buddhi where you're asking him intelligent, interesting questions. Now you can move from no to like. And trust takes a little time. Trust takes a few months, sometimes years, depending on who you're trying to talk to, right? And the more senior the person is, the less time the person has, the less time they have to invest in you to build trust. So that is the struggle, and it depends on who you're trying to approach, right? And then again, having said that, there may be a professor who will reply to you on the first time and say, okay, fine, I'm willing to do this, whatever you asked.
Right.
I'm willing to give you internship or work with you on a project. But again, that is a very small fraction. There will be a lot of students trying to reach them. So you have to be able to build that know, like, trust. Right? It's the same as marketing. Marketing, there's something called a marketing or sales funnel, where you take people down the funnel and you build deeper with them. So that's exactly what relationship building is. Whether it's with a brand, whether it's with a person, whether it's a company, or whether it's with your customer, it's the same approach. Only when you know them will you be able to like and trust them. So you have to take that approach.
Right.
And that's more effective than saying, hi, will you give me project? Hi, will you give me project? Hi, will you give me project? And going to hazard people instead of channeling it to top 20 or top 50 people and then, narrowing it down from there.
Okay.
So it's quantity versus quality. So I think that's how you go about it. And don't always try to go to the top senior most person, right?
Okay.
You don't have to go to the head of the department. Try to go to someone who that person works with. Or next time the person posts on something, comment on his post or his or her post, right? Engage with someone who that person seems to be connected with. So you don't have to go directly to the top person. Go to a middle level person, build a relationship, and maybe they can refer you over time.
Okay.
So these kind of things take time. They take time to approach and build. So these are they're tactics. It's not, tomorrow if someone wanted, you see this all the time in the movies, right? Hey bro, your sister is really pretty. Can you introduce me? Right? That is a lot more effective way to approach someone's sister than to go to her directly and say, I don't know who it is. So at least I can say, hey, see, meet my friend so-and-so. He's a really nice guy. I'm vouching for him. So these are tactics about how to build relationships in different kinds of circumstances, right? You have to be able to apply that depending on who you're trying to approach and talk to.
Okay.
Is that fair?
Yeah, absolutely. So know, like, and trust.
Correct. Absolutely. That is foundation to any relationship, right?
Okay. So that brings me to, what is the message you want to give to the youth or the students, be it the school students or the college students, who are struggling amidst the lockdown, like mentally, and figuring out the way for the next years?
Right. Tough question. All right. But I think it's probably not a singular message as always, because I like to talk so much. But I think mentally, this is definitely a very hard time. Whether you have, support around you, it's very easy to feel lonely, even if you have people around you. So reach out to people, don't be ashamed. Don't be afraid of what you're feeling. Like even me, I'm comfortable. I'm married. I'm with my family. But even me, through the beginning phase of the lockdown, the first month, I was in a bit of a depressive state. It was hard. So definitely, and it's something that anybody, and if somebody already has mental health issues or challenges, it's definitely something that you should keep an eye on. And
Right.
on people who are friends with somebody with mental health issues should try as much as you can to reach out and be there for them. At least a call or a message saying, I'm thinking about you, this is what's on my mind, I hope you're okay, what have you been doing? And even if it's talking about some Netflix show, that's okay. You don't have to be productive 100%. People will say that. I think there's a post that I read on Instagram a couple of weeks ago. We are all in the same storm. right? The same storm is brewing everywhere, but we are not all in the same boat.
Right.
It's very important to remember that our boats are very different. Some people have big boats, some people have small boats, some people are just floating around in the sea.
Right.
And the people who are floating around the sea need more help than others, right? So be there for others, recognize what's within you. So that's for the current period. But beyond that, understand that this is a singular event. It will pass, whether it's over the next few months or the next year or two, it will pass. These things happen, right? This is a once in a lifetime, once in a, generation kind of thing, the
Right.
lockdown specifically, but recessions happen, job crises happen. I have my own cousins and, elder colleagues and seniors who they graduated in 99, in 2000, when the dot-com bubble happened. It was massive layoffs, massive job, and they started their career around the same time as this. 2008 also, there were a lot of people who were my juniors back. It will get by. This is a low period. There will come a time when it starts rising, and that's the strength of humanity. All right. So remember that, and just do the best you can. Right. Sometimes you have to lower your expectations with job or this and that, but keep moving forward in whatever small way. Keep moving forward. Try to do your best. Don't worry about what it was like yesterday. This is a new world. Find your footing and keep moving forward. That's really my message.
Okay. And some books you think everyone should read?
I think some books are. I think so. I don't have a ton of books that I can recommend to a lot of people because I'm not I don't read books fully so enough to tell people. But I think some of the best things that I've come across. I think there's one book that I read partially. It's called Happy by Darren Brown.
Okay.
And, it talks about how over the last several thousand years, and he's done research in history and philosophy about how things have always been good and things have always been hard. How no matter what, you're actually doing okay. And if you look back in history, today, like I said earlier, you guys are the luckiest generation, right? Today is the best time in history compared to 100 years ago, 200 years ago, 2000 years ago, right? It was never as good as it is today, right? No matter what struggles there are, in general, the globe is facing, the human population is in the best time ever. There are a lot of crises, there are a lot of challenges, but this will continue evolving and we will continue evolving with that. So that book, Happy by Darren Brown, that's a big one. There's another one which is also it's an amusing one, but it's also a little motivational, called Living with a Seal by Jesse Isler. So is this pretty rich guy who calls a US military, a SEAL, Navy SEAL, to live with him and his family. So he's got 4 kids, his wife. This Navy SEAL lived with him for 30 days, and about how he called him just to shake up his routine, just to get him to change the way he does things, not his usual 9 to 6 or whatever. Say, okay, do things my way, and exercise or work out or eat, to shake him out of his routine. And that's something that I think applies to the current environment as well. How we all sometimes need to shake up our routine if we want to grow. We need to be able to adapt and adjust. So these are two. I mean, they're not books I've read recently. They're in the past, but I think they're something that send a deep message. They're entertaining as well. So I think that is something everyone would enjoy.
Right.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. So I believe you have added a lot of value to the listeners.
I'm glad. I'm glad to hear that, Mishika. I hope people do find this enjoyable and somewhat entertaining, at least, if not valuable, at least.
Right. So you really have this lovely vibe, and you're a great person to talk to.
That's so sweet. Thank you, Mishika. I'm very glad to hear that, and I feel the same way about you. I hope we can do this again sometime, whether it's on a podcast or not. Let's keep in touch, and I wish the best to your viewers and all your audience.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for giving the time to record this podcast. That definitely means a lot to Mitti Ke Rang.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.